this is one that needs to be serviced. It's not spraying properly and it's leaky. Alright guys, it's Ben. I'm back in the shop today. Today I'm going to talk about another how-to, and that's servicing your JD9 gun. So these are the guns that we use to power spray. This is a brand new one, and this is one that needs to be serviced. It's not spraying properly and it's leaky. So we'll get to that today. Alright, first things first, these are Greenguard guns is the brand. I know there's other ones out there. Really doesn't matter the brand. They all are built similar. So as far as a JD9, you can get a rebuild kit, which will have all the seals and stuff that you need to rebuild this. You can buy each individual part if you need one, if anything's broken. This one is all here. It just needs to be refreshed. That way it works right. So we're going to get into this. Okay, first thing is you'll notice on this new one it has a clip to hold the trigger open, and our gun is missing that, so I've got one ordered. I'm going to get some of those coming in. We're going to do everything else on this gun. So there's an end piece that you can remove, there's the adjuster that you can remove, and then this whole cylinder actually comes out, and I pull the trigger when I'm doing this to release the pressure on this plastic piece. So basically how this gun works is the trigger inside connects to the back. So as you pull this, it pulls this plunger, which creates a seal on this piece of plastic. When it's released out, when you pull it, it allows water to pass through this, goes through the gun. Up in here there's holes, and it spreads through and then comes out just a single hole. So we'll show you how that works. One thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to remove this little set screw. Actually, you don't even have to remove it, you can just back it out. Small Phillips. You get that backed out enough, and what it'll do is it'll allow you to unscrew this completely. Otherwise the screw will hit these threads and stop it, but that's just an adjuster. So inside, these are the holes where the water comes out and then shoots out around this whirlybird pin to the end of the gun, and that's what gets your stream. So there's seals here, there's this plastic piece here, there's also a seal in the end of the gun, and you'll want to clean all of these parts up. Another place where there's some seals is right here on the back of the gun. So you got to remove these 10mm nuts. There's two of them so that you can set it at a certain distance. Remove those. Then what you can do is you can move this trigger arm and remove this big nut looking thing on the back. It unscrews, and it's basically got a packing seal right there that fits around the back side of this shaft as it comes through. So obviously this has a spring on it. This is what makes the seal on the plastic piece, and then there's another seal inside of here. See, that one comes out. So that's the first one. The next one is in this little screw piece. This one's a rubber O-ring. So that's ready. We had the tip. I told you that there's one in here. It's right down in the threads. So to get that one out, it might be easy just to, there we go. So there's the seal there, and then the tip just slides out of the collar. So we want to clean all this stuff up. This one doesn't have any other seals in it, but it can be cleaned. This one has a seal and a backer. It's got an O-ring and then a plastic washer to hold the O-ring in place on the end of this. There we go. So we want to clean this up. Oh, the last thing that you want to remove is this white plastic piece. It just sets in there. Basically just pops into that piece there. So here is the carnage, or the leftovers, of one of these guns. I'll show you all the parts here. So you've got the main housing, which you can clean that out. You've got the backer nut. It's probably not even the right term, but that's what I'm calling it. Here's the pinstream piece and collar. Here's one of the seals. The spring for the trigger plunger. The adjustment collar. And then the spray section here. So water goes in there and it's supposed to come out of all those holes. So you want to make sure those are clean. So it actually screws on these threads. This collar does to adjust the stream. So as you twist this, it either goes pin stream or fan, and it's basically just riding back and forth on those threads. And that adjusts how the water comes across this piece and then into the tip. So we've got all of the seals out, and that's essentially what's going to come in this pack. We'll open that up. Alright, so here we go. Got the package open. Got the plastic piece. Got a small O-ring. We've got the white piece that goes, the other washer that goes behind. And then you've got a big, another one, and a white washer. So big, another O-ring, and the white washer. So that's what comes in the packet, so you're going to replace all of those. Best thing to do with all of these is get them cleaned up. I like to use SOS pads or something to get some of this grime and hard water deposit builds up off of them. And if any of these parts are damaged, you can replace them. So there's that piece if I need to replace it. You can get new springs, you can get new nuts, all of the parts. Alright, so while we've got this apart, let's talk about some of the failure points. Obviously these holes clogging up is going to cause issues. The seals, the little O-ring from the back that sits inside of this backing nut on the gun, if it doesn't seat right around the back of this, then it's going to leak out the back of the gun. So it'll leak out the back and drip down. There typically is not leaks up front in this area because they do seal pretty well. Most of the time if the guys are complaining it's leaking out of the connector or it's leaking out of the back because that seal is bad in the back. The other thing that does happen is it'll leak out the tip of the gun, like it doesn't shut off completely. And what that's from is this plunger piece sits into that plastic piece. If this is chipped or scratched, or the face of this is chipped or scratched, then it doesn't get a good seal and it won't stop the water. So that's one of the failure points. So you want to make sure that this piece here is in good shape, and also the end of this. If not, if you can't clean it up, if it's got rust or stuff stuck to it and you can't clean it off, then you should replace this. And every once in a while these get bent because the guys will drop the guns or they'll hit the end of them. So that's another problem that can cause it to fail. So we inspect those, clean them up. We're replacing this part, so we're going to know that we need to get a good seal on this one. So we'll check the edge. And sometimes from the factory, these have these little imperfections in them. So you want to look for that and see if there's any divots or cuts. Like this one's got imperfections straight out of the bag. So we'll have to see if that's going to be an issue. Alright, we've got all the parts cleaned up. One of the things that you're going to want to do, make sure that all of these holes are completely clear. Get a pick or something, clean those out. You're not going to get it 100% clean, but making sure that all the thread surfaces and mating surfaces are good. First thing I'm going to do is put my plastic seal back in so it fits in just barely. So you get it all the way in there, bring it right up to that ledge. Next thing I'm going to do is put my O-ring on this one. That's the larger of the two. And then you get your plastic collar. That's going to go on the inside. So you push the O-ring towards the outside. And that piece is good to go. And then next, I'm going to take the other large O-ring and I'm going to put it, sits right on that seal of the collar piece. And then this, the threaded part, just goes down on it. Sometimes it'll want to pop the O-ring out, but once you screw it back onto this, it'll push the O-ring back into place. So that just needs to be just not snug, but hand tight with a wrench. And that piece is good. This piece is good. So we're going to put these two together. You can do it on the gun or you can do it off. It does get a little bit harder to twist, so we're going to finish that on the gun itself. So next, we're going to address this area back here. You'll need your plastic washer. It just sits in there, and then the O-ring will not fit. Well, it kind of fits, but it doesn't like to stay. You can try to seat it in there, or what I do is I'll put my pin and spring in, send it through the hole, put the O-ring on that, and carefully, not trying to mess it up, send it down and screw this back piece in. Again, I go hand tight and then just a little bit extra with the wrench just to make sure it's snug. So on that one, actually the threads are buggered up, probably from them dragging the gun on the ground, and the nuts don't want to go on there very well. So I'm going to replace that with a new one. So we'll put the spring on it and send it through. Get it on through there, get the nut started. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this piece in. I'm pulling the trigger as I do that so I don't put pressure on that white plastic retainer, just until it bottoms out. And then you'll notice on my trigger that I've got room now to bring this down, and then I'll do it again, finish seating this. And that is just going to be, again, a little bit snugger. Now, what we're doing here is we need to adjust this trigger. This one's a little bit loose because it's been used, but you bring this down just to where it's not pulling on the trigger at all. So you've got to have just barely a little bit of slack for this nut, so that when you let go of the trigger, it's all the way out. Because you don't want to over tighten this, because then it'll pull the trigger back a little bit and it'll allow your product to go past. So once you get that set with just a very little bit of play, you put the second nut on there. This is basically just to set the area so that the nut doesn't fall off on its own. So what you're going to do with it is you're going to bring them together and I use a needle nose pair of pliers and a wrench, and I just snug them together and make sure that they still have that little bit of slack in them. Okay. Now, once we've got the trigger set, we can go ahead and finish tightening this in a little bit. Make sure we get it into the screw past those threads underneath. And then we're going to sink that screw back in. And all that does is it blocks it so that they can't unscrew this piece all the way off like we did. So that's your set for your pin stream and your fan, which will hook it up and set it from there. But that's how you rebuild these guns. Pretty simple. You do want to take care of these. So I'll recommend doing these in the spring, just before you're to start spraying, because you don't want to leave your O-rings and whatnot from the fall or with old product or old water in there. They will dry out and they get crushed. So the longer they sit not being used, the more they're going to wear out. So I do them right before we're going to use them, get them ready, get them put on the truck that way. So this one's good. I'm just missing that retainer piece, and then I'm going to probably replace the end of the gun with our quick coupler. Okay, so one of the things when you buy a brand new gun, comes in a box. This is how they come. They come with what would fit like on a garden hose or power sprayer hose. You just screw it right to it. We don't like to leave our guns out at night so people can't steal them. So we use quick couplers. We take that piece off, put a quick coupler in. Whatever you guys do for your hoses is up to you. Some guys like to have them permanently fixed. We like to have them quick coupled. The couplers do cost quite a bit. You have to get them from one of the suppliers because it's not something you can just get at a hardware store. All right, so that's a little how-to on how to service your JD9 guns. Make sure you do take care of them. This is what is doing the work, the business for you, so you want to keep these nice and happy.